Welcome to Right versus Left News, your daily briefing on the stories that matter, told from both sides of the aisle. I'm your AI host, Chris, and each day I bring you the most important political and cultural news, with perspectives from conservative and progressive voices. No spin, no agenda, just the facts and the opinions that shape our national conversation. Let's dive in. Today we've got 5 stories shaping the conversation for February 19th, 2026. The Federal Reserve's latest minutes signal caution on rate cuts. The White House just overturned DC's recent tax changes. A new DHS memo points to expanded detention and revetting for refugees. A major New York hospital is ending gender-affirming medical care for minors. And a late-day reversal at the FDA puts Moderna's mRNA flu shot back on track for review. Buckle up, we'll lay out what happened, what the right's saying, and what the left's saying, so you can decide. Before we jump into today's stories, a quick word from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Family GPT, the AI chat platform actually designed for kids. If your children are curious about ChatGPT but you're worried about what they might see, Family GPT gives you full parental controls, content filtering, and the ability to align responses with your family's values, whether Christian, Muslim, Jewish, secular, and many more. Monitor every conversation, set usage limits, and let your kids explore AI safely. No ads, no data selling, complete privacy. Sign up free at familygpt.chat.
Thanks to our sponsors for supporting Right vs. Left News. Now, let's get to the headlines. Story 1, here's what happened. The Federal Reserve released minutes from its January 27th and 28th meeting, kept rates between 3.5% and 3.75%, and stressed that progress back to 2% inflation may be slower and more uneven. Several officials wanted language that keeps rate hikes on the table if inflation stays sticky, while 2 governors dissented in favor of an immediate cut. Markets read it as a higher-for-longer signal, with the next decision due in March. That's from the Fed's minutes and reporting by the Associated Press and the Financial Times. What's the right saying? The Wall Street Journal notes there's little appetite for cuts now, and a willingness to consider hikes if needed, a stance many conservatives see as prudent discipline after years of elevated prices. Some on the right also argue the Fed is resisting political pressure and should safeguard credibility even if growth cools. What's the left saying? Progressive-leaning commentators and mainstream outlets highlight the risks a prolonged hold poses to workers and borrowers, warning that services inflation and a softening labor market could coexist, and urging the Fed to avoid over-tightening. Coverage also underscores internal divisions and the possibility of cuts later this year if disinflation resumes. Story 2. Here's what happened. On Wednesday, the White House said President Trump signed House Joint Resolution 142, nullifying a D.C. law that temporarily decoupled parts of the city's tax code from recent federal changes. He also signed the Semi-Quincentennial Congressional Time Capsule Act. The Washington Post reports Congress's override could cost D.C. roughly $600 million through 2029, and complicate tax season. What's the right saying? House Oversight Republicans praised the resolution as ensuring residents receive the full benefits of tax reform, pointing to bigger standard deductions, tax relief for tips, and other provisions they say put more money in DC pockets. Supporters frame it as protecting taxpayers from a local cash grab and using Congress's clear constitutional authority over the district. What's the left saying? The Washington Post and policy groups argue Congress is overriding local democracy and blowing a large hole in DC's budget that could jeopardize anti-poverty measures like a local child tax credit and an expanded earned income tax credit. They warn of filing chaos and say this rare intervention undermines home rule. Story 3. Here's what happened. A new Department of Homeland Security memo, reported by the Washington Post, outlines detaining refugees who haven't obtained green cards for renewed vetting, reversing a 2010 policy. It emerged as a Minnesota judge temporarily halted arrests of about 5,600 refugees under Operation Paris, the federal re-verification push now facing court scrutiny, according to Fox 9 Minneapolis. Fox News previously reported that U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS, deployed teams to Minnesota to re-examine refugees from certain countries as part of a fraud probe. What's the right saying? Conservative outlets emphasize fraud prevention and national security, portraying Operation Paris as a long overdue integrity check within the refugee program. Fox News highlights USCIS's view that Minnesota is ground zero for a broader fraud crackdown, arguing the goal is to protect the system and the public. What's the left saying? Refugee advocates call the plan punitive and unlawful, warning of refoulement risks, meaning forced return to danger, and a chilling effect on lawful refugees who already passed extensive vetting. Civil rights lawyers argue indefinite detention for paperwork lapses breaks faith with U.S. commitments and violates decades of refugee policy norms. We'll be right back with more of today's news after this brief message.
This episode is brought to you by Family GPT, the AI chat platform actually designed for kids. If your children are curious about ChatGPT, but you're worried about what they might see, Family GPT gives you full parental controls, content filtering, and the ability to align responses with your family's values. Whether Christian, Muslim, Jewish, secular, and many more. Monitor every conversation, set usage limits, and let your kids explore AI safely. No ads, no data selling, complete privacy. Sign up free at familygpt.chat.
Thanks again to our sponsors. Now back to the news. Story 4, here's what happened. NYU Langone Health says it will no longer provide gender-affirming medical care to minors, citing the current regulatory environment. The hospital is ending its transgender youth health program while continuing related mental health services. Local and national coverage attribute the move in part to federal funding threats regarding care for patients under 18. This was reported Wednesday by NY1, The New York Post, and The Guardian. What's the right saying? Right-leaning commentary frames NYU's move as a safety-first step that aligns with tightening medical guidance for adolescents, citing professional groups urging caution, including a recent statement from the American Society of Plastic Surgeons recommending delaying such interventions until about age 19. Some conservatives add that hospitals face legitimate liability and funding risks under new federal policies. What's the left saying? Outlets like The Guardian and LGBTQ publications argue the decision removes medically endorsed care and will harm trans youth, especially in a state with legal protections. Advocates and New York officials are pressing the hospital to help transition patients to other providers and warn the change is driven by politics, not science. Story 5. Here's what happened. In a late-day reversal, the FDA agreed to review Moderna's application for its first mRNA-based flu vaccine, after initially refusing to file it last week over trial design concerns. Moderna is now seeking full approval for adults ages 50 to 64 and accelerated approval for those 65 and older with added study commitments. The decision target is August 5th, potentially in time for next flu season, according to reporting from The Washington Post, The Associated Press, and The Wall Street Journal. What's the right saying? The Wall Street Journal underscores tougher FDA scrutiny of vaccine trials, especially in seniors, while noting the pathway is now open following Moderna's revised plan. Some conservatives argue rigorous standards are appropriate, and that the reversal shows the agency can be firm, yet flexible when companies address concerns. What's the left saying? The Washington Post and The Guardian note the initial refusal alarmed public health experts who saw it as part of a broader, more skeptical posture toward mRNA under current leadership. They view the reversal as welcome, but worry about policy signals that could chill vaccine innovation. Quick recap. The Fed signals caution on rates. The White House overrides DC's tax changes. DHS's refugee revetting push faces legal and humanitarian backlash. NYU Langone halts gender-affirming medical care for minors, and the FDA pivots to review Moderna's mRNA flu shot. Different facts, different lenses, and you've heard both. See you tomorrow. That's it for today's episode of Right vs. Left News. Remember, understanding both sides isn't about picking a team, it's about being informed. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join us tomorrow for another balanced look at the day's biggest stories. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.